Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809, in a small log cabin in Hodgenville, Kentucky. He was born into a poor family. His parents were Thomas Lincoln and Nancy Lincoln. The family did not have much. They lived in a one-room cabin that had only a small fireplace for warmth. There was no electricity or running water, and the furniture was simple and worn out. Lincoln's father, Thomas, worked hard as a farmer, but life was difficult for the family. They didn't have enough money to buy things like books or clothes. They had just enough to survive. Despite these hardships, Lincoln's mother, Nancy, was a very kind and strong woman. She loved her children very much. Even though they were poor, she made sure Abraham and his sister Sarah had enough to eat and were always cared for. Nancy Lincoln was also very wise. She understood the importance of learning and always encouraged her children to read. Even though the family had very few books, Nancy found ways to teach Abraham. She often read the Bible to him by the dim light of a candle. This was where Abraham began to learn how to read. His mother would say, "Abe, with knowledge, you can change your stars." These words were important to Abraham. They helped him believe that learning could help him make a better life, no matter how hard things were. Abraham was very close to his mother. He cherished the quiet moments spent with her, reading together by the fire. He didn't have toys or many games like other children, but he had something much more important: the love of his mother and her belief in him. These things would stay with him forever. When Abraham was only 9 years old, his mother, Nancy, became very sick. She had a disease called milk sickness, which was caused by drinking milk from cows that had eaten poisonous plants. Sadly, Nancy passed away, leaving Abraham and his family heartbroken. This was a very sad time for young Abraham. He missed his mother very much and felt very lonely. But even in his sadness, he remembered his mother's words. "Don't let our hardships discourage you." These words gave him strength. Abraham knew he had to continue with his life, no matter how painful it was. After his mother's death, Abraham had to live with his father and his stepmother, Sarah Lincoln, who had a kind heart. She also supported Abraham's love for reading and learning. Though life was still difficult, Abraham did not give up on his dreams of becoming a smart and wise person. Abraham's stepmother recognized his thirst for knowledge. She would often tell others, "Abe has an unquenchable thirst for knowledge. I've never seen a boy so eager to learn." Abraham wanted to learn as much as he could, and he made the most of every opportunity to read. But books were not easy to come by. They were expensive, and the family had very little money. So Abraham borrowed books whenever he could, walking miles to find someone who would lend him one. The Bible was always his favorite book, but Abraham also loved reading stories like Aesop's Fables, which taught valuable lessons about life. He enjoyed reading about famous people, like George Washington, the first president of the United States. These stories filled his mind with ideas about what was possible. Even though he lived in a small, simple cabin, Abraham's dreams were big. He dreamed of a better future for himself and others. Abraham's love for learning did not stop with reading. He also taught himself how to write. Writing paper was hard to find, but Abraham found ways to practice. He would use pieces of charcoal to write on wooden planks. He practiced writing his letters over and over again until they were neat and clear. He worked hard to become a better writer, knowing that education would help him have a better life. Even though Abraham had to help his father with farm work, he always found time to read and write. He knew that learning was the key to changing his life, and he did not want to waste a single moment. His mother's belief in him was always in his heart, and it kept him going, even when things were difficult. Abraham's early years were full of hardship, but they were also full of lessons. He learned the value of hard work, the importance of education, and the power of determination. He learned that even in the most difficult times, he could find strength in learning. These early experiences shaped the man Abraham would become. He knew that no matter how small and poor his beginnings were, he could rise above them if he worked hard enough. And so, in the quiet of that small log cabin in Kentucky, Abraham Lincoln began his journey toward greatness. The lessons he learned in his early years would guide him through the many challenges he would face in his life. As Abraham Lincoln grew older, his love for learning only grew stronger. He was determined to learn as much as he could, even though he did not have many resources. The small cabin where Abraham lived with his father, Thomas Lincoln, and his stepmother, Sarah Lincoln, had very few books, and the family was poor. They lived a hard life, with little money for things like clothes or food. But Abraham was not discouraged by these challenges. He knew that knowledge was the key to a better life, and he was determined to keep learning, no matter how difficult life seemed. Abraham's love for books was something very special. Even though books were scarce, he did not let that stop him. Whenever he could, he borrowed books from anyone who would lend him one. Sometimes he had to walk for miles just to borrow a single book. His thirst for knowledge was so great that he would read whenever he had the chance, even if it was late at night, sitting by the light of a small fire. The Bible was always his favorite book, but he did not stop there. He read all kinds of stories and fables. One of his favorites was Aesop's Fables. These stories taught him many important lessons about life, like the importance of kindness, honesty, and hard work. Abraham also read books about great people, like George Washington, the first president of the United States. These stories inspired him and made him dream of a better future. He wanted to be a person who could make a difference in the world. Despite living in a very small and simple cabin, Abraham's mind was full of big dreams. He dreamed of a future where he could help others, just like the great people he read about in books. He dreamed of becoming someone important, someone who could make the world a better place. These dreams kept him motivated to keep learning, even when life was difficult. Abraham's stepmother, Sarah, was very supportive of his love for learning. She noticed how much he loved books and how hard he worked to improve himself. She often said, "Abe has an unquenchable thirst for knowledge. I've never seen a boy so eager to learn." Abraham was determined to learn as much as he could, and he used every opportunity to do so. Even though Abraham had to work on the farm every day, he always made time for his studies. He would often spend his free time reading or writing. But paper was not easy to find, and it was expensive. So Abraham used whatever he could to practice his writing. He used pieces of charcoal to write on wooden planks. He practiced writing his letters over and over again until they were neat and clear. Abraham was also very creative. When he did not have a book to read, he would use the world around him to learn. He would talk to people, ask them questions, and listen to their stories. He believed that learning did not only happen from books, but also from people and life experiences. Abraham was always curious and wanted to understand the world better. This curiosity made him a very smart and wise young man, even though he did not have a formal education. His love for learning and his desire to grow never stopped. He did not have the chance to go to school very often, but he learned as much as he could in any way he could. He studied the things that interested him most, like history, math, and writing. When Abraham did have the chance to go to school, he made the most of it. He paid close attention to his teachers and learned as much as possible. Abraham's hard work and determination paid off. He became a very smart and well-educated man, even without going to school for many years. He taught himself many things, and his love for learning never went away. This determination to learn and grow was a big part of who he became. It was this desire to improve himself that helped him become the leader he was. Despite the challenges he faced, Abraham never gave up. His early life had been full of hardships, but he used these challenges as motivation. He knew that life was not always easy, but he believed that with hard work and education, he could make a better future for himself and others. His experiences taught him that success did not come quickly or easily, but with persistence and determination, anything was possible. As Abraham grew into a young man, he realized that learning was not just about books and school. It was about understanding the world, helping others, and making the best of every opportunity. His love for learning was not just about getting an education, it was about becoming a better person and a better leader. He believed that knowledge and education were the keys to making the world a better place. Abraham's story shows that no matter where you come from or how difficult your life may be, you can always grow and improve. Like Abraham, you can take control of your future and make the most of every opportunity to learn and grow. The most important thing is to never give up, no matter how hard things may seem. Abraham Lincoln's determination to learn and grow, even in the face of so many obstacles, is a lesson for all of us. He showed that with a strong will, a love for learning, and the desire to improve, you can achieve anything. As Abraham Lincoln grew older, he began to realize that learning was not just about gaining knowledge for himself. It was about helping others and making the world a better place. He understood that in order to make a real difference, he needed to step out of his small world and into a larger one. This was when he decided to enter the world of politics. Abraham's journey toward politics started with his desire to improve the lives of others. Growing up in a poor family, he had witnessed the struggles of many people, and he understood their hardships. He saw how difficult life was for those who were less fortunate, and he wanted to do something about it. He knew that if he wanted to help others, he needed to be in a position where he could make important decisions. For Abraham, politics seemed like the best way to bring about change. In the early years of his adulthood, Abraham took on many different jobs. He worked as a shopkeeper, a postmaster, and a surveyor. These jobs taught him many things about people and life. As a shopkeeper, he met many different kinds of people and listened to their stories. He saw how the poor struggled, how people faced challenges in their everyday lives, and how important it was for leaders to understand the people they served. Abraham also worked as a postmaster, delivering letters and messages to people. He learned the value of communication and the importance of staying connected with others. One of the most important jobs Abraham had was working as a surveyor. A surveyor is someone who measures land and helps determine the boundaries of property. This job allowed Abraham to travel to different places and meet even more people. He learned a lot about the land and about how people lived. As a surveyor, he also became more aware of the growing tension between the North and the South in the United States. He saw how different people had different opinions about important issues like slavery. Although Abraham had many jobs and learned a lot from them, he knew that if he wanted to make a real difference, he needed to enter politics. In 1834, when Abraham was 25 years old, he decided to run for the Illinois state legislature. This was his first step into the world of politics. At the time, Abraham was not a well-known man. He came from a poor family, and he had not gone to school for many years. But he had a strong sense of right and wrong, and he believed in the power of democracy. He believed that everyone should have the right to participate in government, and he wanted to make sure that the voices of ordinary people were heard. So he decided to run for office. even though he did not have a lot of money or experience. In his first campaign, Abraham spoke to people in small towns and villages, explaining his ideas and asking for their support. He told them that he believed in fairness and equality, and he promised to work hard to make their lives better. His speeches were simple and clear, and his honesty won the hearts of many people. Though Abraham did not have the education or wealth of some of the other candidates, his passion and his strong sense of justice made him stand out. Abraham was elected to the Illinois state legislature in 1834. This was a big victory for him. It showed that even though he came from humble beginnings, he could make a difference. During his time in the legislature, Abraham worked hard to pass laws that would improve the lives of ordinary people. He believed in the importance of education, and he fought for laws that would provide better opportunities for young people to learn. But even though Abraham had found success in his first political role, he knew that his journey was just beginning. He still had much to learn, and he knew that he needed to continue growing if he was going to make a bigger impact. Over the next few years, Abraham continued to study, read books, and learn from his experiences. He read about great leaders like George Washington, and he began to form his own ideas about what kind of leader he wanted to be. It was during this time that Abraham became more and more concerned about the issue of slavery. He had always believed that slavery was wrong, but his experiences as a surveyor and his deepening understanding of the country's political situation made him realize how important it was to fight against it. In the 1840s, he began to speak out against slavery in public speeches, and he became known for his strong moral views. He argued that slavery should not spread to new territories, and that the government should not allow it to grow. Abraham's views on slavery were not popular in all parts of the country. Many people in the southern states believed that slavery was necessary for their way of life, and they strongly disagreed with Abraham. But Abraham did not let this stop him. He knew that slavery was wrong, and he was willing to stand up for what he believed in, no matter the cost. In 1846, Abraham decided to run for U.S. Congress. He worked hard on his campaign, traveling around the state and speaking to people about the issues that mattered most to them. His campaign was focused on slavery, democracy, and fairness. He won the election and became a congressman, representing Illinois in Washington, D.C. During his time in Congress, Abraham continued to speak out against slavery. He also spoke about the importance of national unity and the need for the United States to remain strong and united. Although his time in Congress was relatively short, Abraham's time there helped him grow as a leader. He learned how to work with other politicians, how to make compromises, and how to stand firm in his beliefs. After his time in Congress, Abraham returned to Illinois, where he continued to practice law and speak out about the issues that mattered to him. He began to gain more recognition for his strong beliefs and clear thinking. Abraham's time in politics was not always easy. He faced many challenges and many people who disagreed with him, but he never gave up. He continued to fight for what he believed was right, even when it was difficult. And over time, people began to see that he was a man of integrity, a man who could be trusted to do the right thing. Abraham Lincoln's journey to politics was a long one, but it was also a journey that helped shape him into the leader he would one day become. His determination to learn, his strong sense of justice, and his willingness to stand up for what was right set him apart from other politicians. His journey in politics was just the beginning of a long and difficult path that would eventually lead him to the highest office in the land, where he would change the course of history forever. Abraham Lincoln's life was not always easy, especially as he started his journey in politics. Though he had strong beliefs, a clear sense of justice, and a commitment to do what was right, the road was full of struggles. These struggles came not only from his work as a politician, but also from his personal life. In the world of politics, it was often difficult to gain the respect of others. When Abraham first began running for office, many of his opponents mocked him because of his humble background. They made fun of his simple way of speaking, his lack of a formal education, and his honest, straightforward style. They thought that someone like Abraham, who came from a poor family and didn't have much education, could never succeed in the complex world of politics. However, Abraham did not let their words discourage him. He believed that his ideas, his honesty, and his determination were what truly mattered. So, despite the criticism, he continued to speak out and fight for what he believed in. His first big challenge came in 1843 when he ran for U.S. Congress. Abraham worked hard on his campaign. He traveled across Illinois, speaking to people and explaining his ideas. But despite his efforts, he lost the election. This defeat was a hard one for him. He had worked so hard, and yet he had failed. At first, Abraham felt disappointed. He wondered if he was truly cut out for politics. But then he remembered the lessons his mother had taught him. He knew that life was full of challenges, and that failure was just a part of the journey. So, he picked himself up and tried again. Abraham was determined not to give up. He kept learning from his mistakes and kept pushing forward. In his personal life, Abraham also faced many challenges. In 1842, he married Mary Todd, a woman from a family with more money and social status than his own. Though they were in love, their marriage had its difficulties. Mary sometimes felt out of place in Abraham's simple life, and Abraham often felt uncomfortable in Mary's more formal, upper-class world. They had many disagreements, but despite these challenges, their love for each other remained strong. The birth of their children brought both joy and sorrow. They had 4 sons, Robert, Eddie, William, and Thomas. However, the happiness of their growing family was also touched by tragedy. In 1850, their second son, Eddie, died at the age of 4. This loss was devastating for Abraham and Mary. It left them both heartbroken. The pain of losing a child was something that Abraham could not easily forget, and it stayed with him for the rest of his life. Despite the personal loss and the challenges he faced in his marriage, Abraham never let his personal struggles interfere with his work. He continued to fight for what he believed was right, even when it seemed difficult. His ability to face personal hardships while staying true to his goals and beliefs was one of the things that made him a strong leader. Abraham's struggles, both in politics and in his personal life, shaped the man he would become. They taught him valuable lessons about resilience, determination, and the importance of staying true to oneself, no matter the obstacles. These lessons would help him in the years to come as he faced even greater challenges in his life and leadership. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected as the 16th President of the United States. It was a time of great tension in the country. The United States was divided. The northern states and the southern states had very different views, especially about slavery. The southern states believed in keeping slavery, while the northern states wanted to end it. Lincoln's election as president caused fear in the South, and many southern states decided to leave the Union. They formed their own government, called the Confederacy. Despite this, Lincoln was determined to keep the country united. He believed that the United States must stay together, no matter what. He made it clear that he would do everything he could to stop the spread of slavery and preserve the Union. His leadership during this difficult time was tested when the Civil War broke out. The war was long and painful, with many lives lost on both sides. But Lincoln never lost his focus on his goal, to end slavery and bring the country back together. In 1863, Lincoln took one of the most important steps in his presidency by issuing the Emancipation Proclamation. This document declared that all slaves in the Confederate States would be free. Although it did not end slavery everywhere, it was a major step in the fight for freedom. Lincoln believed that slavery was wrong, and this act showed the country and the world that he was committed to ending it. As the war continued, Lincoln faced many challenges. He had to make many difficult decisions, sometimes with very little support from others. But Lincoln stayed strong. He knew that he was doing what was right, even when it was hard. He believed that the United States was founded on the idea that all people are equal, and he worked to make that idea a reality. In addition to his work on slavery, Lincoln also focused on healing the country. He wanted to bring the nation back together after the war. He worked on plans to rebuild the South and help the former slaves have better lives. He also pushed for the passage of the 13th Amendment, which made slavery illegal throughout the United States. This amendment was passed in 1865, shortly before Lincoln's death. Tragically, Lincoln's life was cut short. Just days after the Civil War ended, on April 14, 1865, he was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth, a man who disagreed with his policies. The nation was shocked and heartbroken. Lincoln, the man who had worked so hard to keep the country together, was gone. Despite his death, Lincoln's legacy lived on. His vision for a united, free country shaped the future of the United States. He is remembered as one of the greatest presidents in American history. His leadership during the Civil War and his efforts to end slavery helped change the nation for the better. The Gettysburg Address, one of Lincoln's most famous speeches, still inspires people today. In this speech, Lincoln reminded the nation that it was founded on the idea that all men are created equal, and that this belief must be protected. Lincoln's legacy continues to influence the world today. He is remembered for his dedication to freedom, equality, and unity. His life shows us the power of perseverance, integrity, and the belief in doing what is right, even when it is difficult. Abraham Lincoln's presidency changed the course of American history, and his legacy will continue to inspire generations to come. Abraham Lincoln's life is a story of perseverance, courage, and a deep belief in justice. He was born into poverty in a small cabin in Kentucky, but he never let his humble beginnings define his future. Despite facing many challenges, including the loss of his mother at a young age and the difficulties of growing up poor, Lincoln always believed in the power of education and hard work. He taught himself to read and write, using whatever resources he could find, and his thirst for knowledge never stopped. As he grew older, Lincoln realized that he wanted to make a difference in the world. He became involved in politics, and although many doubted him because of his lack of formal education, he proved that with determination and honesty, anyone could succeed. Lincoln's journey to becoming president was not easy. He faced many setbacks, including losing elections and struggling in his personal life, but he never gave up. His ability to stay true to his beliefs, even in the face of failure, made him a powerful leader. As president, Lincoln faced the most difficult challenge of all, the Civil War. The country was divided, and Lincoln had to make tough decisions to preserve the Union and end slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation, which he issued in 1863, was one of the most important acts of his presidency. It declared that all slaves in the Confederate States would be free, marking a turning point in the fight for equality. Lincoln's commitment to justice and equality helped shape the future of the United States and brought about the end of slavery through the 13th Amendment. Sadly, Lincoln's life was cut short when he was assassinated in 1865, just as the country was beginning to heal from the wounds of war. His death was a great loss, but his legacy lived on. Lincoln's vision for a united, free, and equal country continues to inspire people around the world today. His life shows us that with determination, integrity, and a belief in what is right, we can overcome even the greatest obstacles. The lessons from Lincoln's life are still relevant today. One of the most important lessons we can learn from his story is the power of persistence. Lincoln faced many challenges, but he never gave up. He believed in the importance of learning, growing, and improving, no matter how difficult life became. His story teaches us that success does not come easily, but with hard work, dedication, and a strong sense of purpose, we can achieve our goals. Another key lesson is the importance of standing up for what is right, even when it is difficult. Lincoln never backed down from his belief in equality and freedom, even when it cost him personally and politically. He understood that doing the right thing is not always easy, but it is always worth it in the end. Finally, Lincoln's life reminds us of the importance of empathy and understanding. He had a deep empathy for the struggles of others, which is why he fought so hard for the rights of enslaved people and worked to heal a divided nation. In our own lives, we can apply this lesson by listening to others, understanding their struggles, and working to make the world a better place for everyone. Thank you for following Abraham Lincoln's journey and for listening to his inspiring story. By listening to this story, you've not only learned about an important figure in history, but also improved your English listening and comprehension skills. I hope this story has inspired you to keep learning and growing, just like Lincoln did. If you enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing to the channel to support us and encourage us to create more content like this. Your support motivates us to continue bringing you stories that can help you learn and grow.